Greetings, this is Dr. Brandy Marks, Biblical Licensed Mental Health Counselor, Vancouver, Washington. Today we're looking at temper tantrums. What do you do when your child's supernovas blows up like an exploding star? Okay. Temper tantrums occur in ages 18 months to 4 years. I know it's usually thought of around the terrible twos, but it can happen before them as well as after. They're to be expected in many children and are equally seen in both boys and girls. Half of all young children have at least one or more temper tantrums a week. Certain situations seem to trigger temper tantrums. Bedtime, meals, getting up or getting dressed, bath time, wanting to watch television, you're on the phone, they want your attention, and they start shrieking or something else. Visitors at your house, such as a family visiting, external family members visiting, car rides, any kind of public place, those are famous because they know you can embarrass you there. Okay, activities involving their siblings, interactions with peers, and of course, there's always playtime. All young children occasionally, from time to time, will whine, complain, resist, cling, argue, shout, run about, hit, and defy you with great exuberance. Not necessarily the same as a temper tantrum. Could be leading up to it if they're prone to them. Temper tantrums, while normal, can be upsetting. First of all, they embarrass you, the parent. They can be a challenge to you for how to deal with them, and they can be extremely difficult to manage. Temper tantrums can become a problem, especially when they occur with greater frequency, intensity, and duration that is typical for the age of the child. I know adults who have temper tantrums, for pity's sakes. Clearly, they did not learn self-discipline when they were young. Okay, and that's what's needed. This is a time in a child's life when they can learn self-discipline to manage their emotions and how they react in life or respond appropriately. At 1.5 through 2 years, children will test the limits, and beyond that, some of them. And if they didn't learn it early on, say like at 18 months or 2 years, and at 3 or 4, that means you haven't taught them to manage their temper tantrums, their exuberance, or whatever you want to call it. By those 18 months to 2 years, chances are you're going to have problems at the ages of 3 and 4 too. So children want to see just how far they can push you, the caregiver, before you step in and stop their behavior, alter it in some way. That's helpful, hopefully. When a child's needs for independence, and that begins around the age of 2, and when it collides with the parent's need for safety and comfort of the child or conformity, conditions are ripe for a power struggle and temper tantrums. But we've already learned that power struggles don't get you anywhere, or if they do, it's really not a fair way to engage. So the temper tantrum is designed to get the parent to cease their demands or to give the child what they want. Many children will stop the temper tantrum only when they get what they want. And we know that's not acceptable, because if we give in to them, their demands just get bigger and the temper tantrums get worse. Most upsetting to parents is it's virtually impossible to reason with a child who's in the middle of a temper tantrum. Arguing, cajoling, bribing them in response to a temper tantrum oftentimes escalates the problem. They scream louder, stomp their feet, and just have a hissy fit, like my kitty cat when the neighbor's cat comes around. Okay, she literally hisses at that other cat. Okay, it's easier to prevent tantrums than to manage them once they erupt. Now, let's take a look at some tips for preventing temper tantrums and some things that you can say to help prevent them and not even get into the temper tantrum. Now, you as a parent, if you don't have a lot of self-discipline, I guarantee you, if you dig in and really learn these lessons, you also will learn some very good self-discipline skills here. Okay, reward for positive rather than negative behavior. You don't reward a child for having a tantrum and then getting over it, give them a reward, or even bribe them to stop the temper tantrum. That's, will only ensure further temper tantrums. So you want to reward them for positive behavior rather than negative attention. Situations where they're prone to temper tantrums, well, catch them when they're being good. Don't wait until the temper tantrum starts. Say, nice job with, whatever, or nice job sharing with the neighbor kid, perhaps, or their sibling, if they haven't done that in the past, and you suddenly notice, oh, they're being nice. Give them a reward for that. Well, not a physical, monetary, or food reward, but just a word that says, wow, that was great. I like the way you responded to your sister or brother, whoever. Don't ask a child what to do when it's something they must do. Instead of, would you like to eat your dinner now? And I hear so many parents get down in this would you do me a favor and eat your dinner now? It's just, you know, I roll my eyes metaphorically. Instead, you say, it's dinner time now. Do you want to eat now, or do you want to wait till breakfast in the morning? Give them a choice if they want to be honored. Give control over little things whenever possible by giving choices, and avoid a power struggle by giving those choices. Which do you want to do first? Brush your teeth or put on your PJs? Never. Well, you have a choice. You can put your PJs on first, or you can brush your teeth. Which do you want to do? Now, I'm not going to go over what you do if they rebel against that, because we covered that. Not in the last episode, but the one before that. Okay, keep off-limit objects out of sight, thus out of mind. In an art activity, keep the scissors or any pointy things or open bottles of paint, whatever, out of reach if the child is not ready to use them safely, hasn't been instructed or practiced using them safely, like the paints or whatever. And, you know, even round-headed scissors can be dangerous in the hands of a child, so that would include all scissors. Distract children by redirecting them to another activity. Now, when the tantrum is over something they should not do or cannot have, you can say, let's read a book together. Or, you know, let's go read a book. Which one would you like? And offer them a choice. You want to read Tom Sawyer or the Muppets, whatever. Okay, change the situation. Remove a child from the source of the temper tantrum. You can say, you know, let's go for a walk or listen to music. Which would you like to do? You know, something fun, you know, the child would enjoy. Choose your battles. Teach a child to make a request without the temper, and then honor the request. Say to them, ask for that toy nicely and I'll get it for you. And you know how kids can be. They get that little snotty tone of voice. And you say, I'm more than willing to give you the toy if you ask for it nicely. Otherwise, you can go to your room. It's your choice. Always make it their choice. I had someone recently say to me, oh, I feel so guilty. I says, why are you feeling guilty? Well, now he's going to jail, or he's this or he's that. I said, but that's not your fault. They broke the rules. That was a choice they made. That is their consequence. There's no reason for you to feel guilty. Okay, so it takes a long time to get people past that guilt. They think because they give a consequence for inappropriate behavior that they should feel guilty for it. Absolutely not. That child disobeys. They make a choice to have the consequences come as a result of the poor choice they made. Or, if they made the right choice, the positive consequence. Okay, make sure the child is well rested and fed in situations where a temper tantrum is possible. You can say to them, supper is almost ready. Here's a cracker or snack of some sort. Or, you know, here's a puzzle you can work on while you're waiting. Depends upon the situation and what usually elicits a temper tantrum from them. Avoid letting boredom set in. If this is a child who gets really active and acts out, maybe they're bored, their energy level is up and they just want to do something. And so you know they're going to get into a temper tantrum in that situation. So you do your best to avoid letting boredom come along. You can say to them, you know, you've been working for a long time at this, must be getting tedious. Let's take a break and do something more fun. Create a safe place they can explore without getting into trouble. Child-proof your home or classroom so children can explore safely. My first apartment was an open area, so I kind of liked it because I could keep an eye on my son. If he was out of the room, that's when I set aside what I was working on and went looking for him to see what he was up to. Usually some kind of mischief. Both of my boys were very creative and liked to investigate stuff, so I really had to keep an eye on them. Okay, increase tolerance levels. Are you available to meet the child's reasonable needs? How many times do you say no? If you're a parent that says no over and over and you never say yes, you know, you might want to rethink your strategies there. We looked at this earlier as well. You know, you should have at least say yes to your child as often as you possibly can, or give responsible choices about things that you can say yes to, and avoid saying no as much as possible. But don't leave it out totally. Children need to hear that no, so they learn to say no to themselves as they get older. And that way they learn how to say no as adults, and they don't fall into the trap of saying yes to everything that's offered to them, which means addictions and all kinds of issues. Okay. Avoid conflict over minor things. Establish routines with structure. Start playtime with the sharing and interaction, if at all possible. Okay. Let the child know before you end an activity so they are ready for the transition. When the timer rings in 5 minutes, we'll turn off the TV and go to bed. But even before then, I suggest, well, let's go set the timer because bedtime's coming up. So, and then you and the child together can set the timer. Kids love doing stuff like that. Now, and then you can say afterwards, now when the timer rings in 5 minutes, we'll turn off the TV and go to bed. They're all set up for doing the right thing. When visiting new places or people, explain to the child ahead of time what to expect. You can say, now, when we're here, I want you to stay with your grandma, your dad, your sister, your buddy, whatever. And so you're not wandering out. But I often say, don't tell them what not to do. Tell the child what to do instead, so there's no confusion. Offer preschool behavioral and social challenges at the child's developmental level, which was some of the very first things we looked at in the very first video. Okay, the child's developmental level is important so the child does not become unnecessarily frustrated. If you're expecting something that's beyond the child developmentally, and that differs for every child, then you're probably in for a temper tantrum if the child gets too frustrated. It's not their fault then. Keep your sense of humor intact to divert the child's attention and surprise them out of the tantrum. There's all kinds of things you can say. Oh, let's get in the car before that great big dog comes down the street. But not if the child's afraid. We don't want to be late for so-and-so. Find some way to make a joke out of it. I can't even think of anything right now, but I'm sure you're creative and can come up with something that you can turn it into a humorous suggestion. Remain calm and don't argue with the child. First, you must learn to manage yourself. Spanking or yelling only makes things worse, as you probably know already. Think before you act and don't engage the child in a power struggle. No one wins these. Count to 10. Ask yourself, well, what's the source of this kid's frustration right now? What the heck's going on with him or her? The child's usual response to stress. Is this what they usually do, or is this something different? Do they normally get moody, overactive, or so forth? And what causes the temper tantrums to escalate most of the time? You might want to sit down with your notebook that I know you've been keeping throughout this and think about, what usually starts the temper tantrum. Keep a journal for a couple of weeks and write everything down. When a temper tantrum occurs, what the heck was happening 5 minutes earlier or just before this? And how did I handle it? Okay, what would I like to do different? Try to intervene before the child gets out of control if you see a temper tantrum initiating. Get down at eye level also. Don't tower over the child in a position of dominance. That can be frightening for some children. And it's a power play once again. Get down at eye level, which is good communication with any person you're talking to. If you're a very tall person, get down, sit down, and be at eye level with whoever you're talking about. With a child, you can say, you're starting to get revved up out of hand. It's time to slow down. Now, here's the choice. This is what you can do. We can do this, or we can do that. Or you can do this, or you can do that. Which do you want to do? Okay, some other interventions might be you can distract by focusing the child on an acceptable activity. Again, remove unsafe items and replace them with safe ones. Place the child in time away, a quiet place where he or she goes to calm down normally and think on what she needs to do, with your help perhaps even. Ignore the tantrum if you feel it's to get attention. I know pretty clued in when child's doing something to get my attention. I ignore them. Matter of fact, I do that with a lot of people, even adults. So ignore it. If you get the sense over time that, this kid's just doing this to get my attention, then don't give it to them when they're being inappropriate. Once the child calms down, then you can give them the attention they wanted. Hold an out of control child who's going to hurt herself, or maybe someone else, or who's going to do some serious damage to stuff around the house. I saw my sister do this once with her grandson. He would have these screaming fits, and she would lay on the bed with him and wrap him in her arms in a cocoon, and he would scream and fuss, and pretty soon he would quiet down and maybe take a brief nap. That worked wonderfully well. Let the child know you will let him or her go as soon as the child calms down. Remember, you're calm, cool, and collected through this. It's not that you're not frustrated, maybe angry even at what's going on. Maybe you're in a hurry to go someplace, and all of a sudden your child's acting like a exploding star, okay? So, but it's still important to do your very, very best to calm, cool, and collected. Okay, reassure first, then help the child calm down. It's going to be okay. Come on, let me help you calm down. Let's do something fun. Hug your crying child. Say you will always love her or him, but their behavior has to change. Maybe when you're holding them, I know you're upset. It's okay, baby. I love you to death. I just love you so much, but your behavior has to change. What you're doing is not acceptable. Okay? If the tantrum escalates and you cannot intervene, direct the child to a timeout. In public, just go out to the car. We will go home if you don't calm down. If they don't, leave the groceries, apologize to the clerk if you have to. And I know some of you think, I can't do that. Of course you can. You may not be willing. Maybe your grocery cart's full and you feel like a fool dropping it off at the check stand. Say, I'm sorry, but I have to take my kid home, and walk out the store. These people, they have people that run around, clean up stuff and carts that are left behind. They'll take care of it. Okay, warn the child no more than 3 times to calm down. And with each, I need you to calm down. Okay, then use their name. Johnny, Tommy, whoever, Sally, you need to calm down now, or else we're going home. Okay, you have 3 to the count of 5 now, and if you're not calm by the time I reach 5, we're leaving. Now, of course, this presumes this will work great if you follow through. But some parents will go through all that and the child still screaming, so the parent gives them what they want. All the child learns from that is how to endure until the parent gives in. Well, you don't want that, of course. You want the child. So at the count of 5, child screaming, calm down, child screaming. Okay, you need to calm down or we're going home. First time you ask them to calm down. Second time, calm down. If you don't calm down, there's consequences. Third time, I'm counting to 5 and then we're going home. They're still screaming. Pick them up and haul them out of the store, kicking and screaming if necessary. I had to do that with a couple of my kids. And he never did it again, my oldest son. Or my youngest son either. Neither one of them did it a second time. If the child refuses, place them in timeout for no more than 1 minute for each year of age. Now, if this is when you absolutely can't go home and you're at a store, maybe at the mall, and there's a bench out in the hall or something, down right by the restrooms where you can go into and have the child sit there until they calm down. Okay, no, you're going into timeout. You sit them down. Let's go. And then you take them into the bathroom or wherever they have a place and give them their timeout. Talk with the child only after he or she is calm and not during the timeout. This is not a time for mini lectures. Nobody listens to mini lectures anyway. Okay. Teach the child in the future to avoid tantrums by, she asks for help when she recognizes a need. She has to learn, when the temper tantrum is over with and everything's calmed down, you can say, okay, now what could you do next time when you find yourself getting upset? Maybe you could ask for help when you recognize you're getting upset. Encourage them to do that. Maybe he signals, this is something he can learn to do, is to signal, he or she, to signal a parent or teacher he needs timeout to stop, think, and make a plan. Make these very clear. Help him or her. Now, if you do it with a teacher, make sure the teacher understands the expectations so there's no temper tantrum. Now, we've said Sally or Tommy or whoever, when he says he needs a timeout to stop, think, and make a plan, do you have a place where he or she can go? Arrange this with the teacher, Sunday school or a regular school. Okay, help him or her to learn ways to interact with adults, siblings, or peers that are more effective. Help him or her to identify how the child is feeling at the time. What's going on with you? What was going on with you before then? Were you afraid? Were you just anxious and fearful, or what? Tell me. Can you think back and remember how you were feeling? Okay, if they seem to be escalating and they haven't gone into the temper tantrum, that's the best time to be asking, how are you feeling right now? What's going on? Can you express your feelings with words? Maybe you need to go to your room and you could draw a picture of your feelings and show me how you're feeling. Okay, teach them to recognize the feelings of others without screaming or hitting. Are they feeling upset, angry at someone, hurt because of something someone else did? And so they're screaming and hitting. To get even, whatever. Okay. Responding after the event. Never give in to a temper tantrum. This will only increase the number and frequency. Guaranteed. Instead, explain there are better ways that they can get their needs met. Never reward a child for calming down after the tantrum. That just teaches them, well, the children quickly learn a temper tantrum is a good way to get attention or a treat later. And you're in for a lot of trouble if you do that. Repeat temper tantrums. Okay, never let a temper tantrum interfere with your otherwise positive relationship with the child. Don't keep bringing it up. The temper tantrum's over with. Whatever happened, if there was a consequence for their acting out, it's over and done with. They paid the consequence. Leave it alone. Don't go back and remind the child the next time they're, or you remember what happened last time. Don't do that. Okay. Teach the child that anger is a feeling everyone has, and it's perfectly okay to feel angry. But then teach them ways to express the anger constructively. Say, honey, it's okay to be angry. There are things in life that make us angry. For example, I get angry when I have just a long line at the store and I'm in a hurry to get someplace. That really irritates me. However, I have learned to be patient in that situation by taking a deep breath, and however you deal with it, be honest with the child. Okay, timeout techniques. There's a time in and a timeout. Giving the child lots of time in with connected parenting when they're not doing something to get attention. Then when the child misbehaves, withdraw the positives. You're doing something wonderful with them and they start acting out. You remind, you need to stop this now, or we're not going to be able to do this exercise or whatever you're doing. And if they continue, you withdraw your positive behavior. This way the child gets to feel right when acting right and feels wrong when acting wrong. This is one of the best ways. By making a connection between good behavior and good feelings, a child becomes motivated to keep their act together so they feel good. They want to feel good. They don't like temper tantrums and feeling bad, but the screaming and the headache afterwards and the swollen eyes and feeling terrible. Children love to feel good, just like you do. Those wonderful endorphins. Okay. For a time out to work, the child needs to experience a large amount of quality time in. That means that no matter what's going on in the housework, you have to make time for your child. It is so important. Okay, prepare the child. Help child to connect their behavior with the timeout. Introduce timeouts early by when they're 18 months old, if possible. Of course, if they're 2 years old now, you can't go back and redo, but you start whenever, okay, as soon as possible. Before then, use distraction and diversion. Baby crawls towards the lamp. You intercept the child and carry them to a new spot and sit between the baby and the lamp. You now add a place to sit, such as a timeout chair. Timeout in your arms or sitting next to you is best if the chair is threatening for the child, but you run the risk the child will use it to get picked up and held for misbehaving, so you don't really want to go there. If at all possible, with a very young child, you can do that. As they start getting older, you need to have a timeout chair. You can avoid this by holding the child a lot when she is not misbehaving. Okay, back to the concept of time in. And so, short and sweet. Escort the child to timeout right after the misbehavior. Don't wait. A prompt, calm, cool approach can stop protests. You set the ground rules ahead of time so you don't have to explain yourself. You don't apologize, placate, or get wishy-washy about it. If your child senses any uncertainty in you, a protest will follow likely. They learn to manipulate very quickly. Now, it's not that they're thinking, I'm going to manipulate my mom or dad here, but they know which parent they can manipulate, and they will. Children are narcissists at a certain age. It's only when they get older that they reach that developmental stage where they can look beyond themselves to other people. Avoid saying, I told you no 1,000 times. Oh my gosh. I can think back when I said that to my kids 1,000 times at least. Okay, it didn't help. I had to find other ways. This nagging style pushes the anger buttons in the child, putting time out into the revenge mode and cancels its behavior changing potential. It just doesn't help. Keep it quiet. Keep time brief, around 1 minute per year of age. For older children, you make the time fit the crime. There's a 5-minute timeout. When kids are into sports, they better understand this discipline. 5 minutes for pushing. This is not the time for your child to be screaming or you to be preaching or moralizing. No mini lectures. You know what the Bible says? You're supposed to honor your parents. They could care less at that age. You know, I know parents that think these young children understand the God in the scriptures, but they don't. They learn to understand it. You know, like Isaiah says, stop doing evil, learn to do good. It's all a learning cycle. If there's a lesson for them to learn, save it for later when the child is more open to hearing it. No mini lectures in the middle of the tantrum. Okay, be the timer. 2 minutes is meaningless to a child under 3. They don't understand what 2 minutes is. Use a timer or alarm clock to make an impression and to help you keep track of the time. Kitchen timers are great. Sports timer. I have a timer app on my cell phone. I use it at the office, but if I had kids around, it'd be great for that too. When the signal sounds, it announces the time is up. Let the child decide his or her next course of action when the time is up. He may be thinking about his behavior when the buzzer sounds, so let him think about it. If he looks contemplative, like he's considering, just leave things be, even though the timer's gone up. Don't say, okay, timer's gone up, you can come out now. They can hear the timer. They'll come out when they're ready. If he's thinking his problem over and what he could do different next time, we'll let him think. This is a good thing. Okay, no need to break his train of thought. He'll get the point himself. Okay, now the right place. You may have a designated timeout chair for a child, or a bench, or whatever. If you're away from home, any spot that removes the child from the scene of the crime will work. It's removing the child from the place of misbehavior that makes the impression. Not where, not how long. You know, if your child tends to have temper tantrums in the store when you first go in, you might walk over to the manager and say, you know, my kid has a problem in the store. Is there someplace we can go? And, you know, ask a question ahead of time. You know, most store people are more than happy to help you. They'd rather you do that than have a screaming kid in the checkout line. Be sure the place doesn't have built-in rewards. To make the point, retreat needs to be a boring place. Yeah. You know, if you take them back to the pharmacy and put them where the blood pressure cuff is, chances are they're going to be taking their own blood pressure. Okay, or somebody's. The TV, game, or computer is not part of timeout. Nothing is part of timeout. Timeout is sitting in a place with no distractions where they are bored to death and give lots of time to think about what they did. If they refuse, sit with the child if necessary. We're on timeout. Forget the washing machine, forget the dishes, forget the vacuuming for now. Teaching your child to behave appropriately is more important than all the vacuuming in the world. Okay, if the time is short enough and you are calm, there is no reason for the child to protest. If she screams, stay, she stays there until she's calm. Use positive terms. You need a thinking time, or their name. It's a Laura or gym time, whatever your child's name. For timeout to work with the older child, you may need to explain what timeout means. Timeout means you go sit over there and stay until it's time for you to come out. If you have to go to timeout, we'll set the timer. Notice the coach when the team starts falling apart on the field. He calls for timeout so the players can cool off and think about how they can play a better game. Timeouts are used in sports all the time. Most kids understand this. So give them time to think. Timeout gives older children time to reflect on their misdeeds. If the behavior is small, it needs no more discipline, but a big one needs more intensive care than a simple timeout. If it's a biggie, she hurt someone after a cool off, do not preach or give mini lectures. Matter of factly tell the child how you expect her to spend the time out. I want you to think about what you did. How would you feel if or when your friend hurt you like that or did something like that to you? The ideal is when the child realizes the consequences of her actions or his own. That's self-discipline. Clear the air. After the timeout, the child has served his time, so get on with life and quietly start a new activity. In Jesus' childhood story, being he was only 12, he was not old enough to make adult decisions. Also, he was in the temple talking and teaching the elders, and it was fabulous, but that was really beyond his years. Men didn't enter in or do the work of a ministry until they were at least 30 years of age. Now, while it doesn't say what happened on the way home, it's possible Joseph may have talked with Jesus about the correct behavior for a 12-year-old. Girls bat mitzvah at the age of 12, and then they're preparing for marriage right after that. Boys don't bar mitzvah in the Jewish culture until they're 13. That's when he would have automatically become a man. At any rate, after that, he went with his parents and was obedient to them and gained the respect of his family and his community. Well, this is Dr. Brandy Marks, biblical licensed mental health counselor in Vancouver, Washington. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this.